The Ship of Theseus is a fascinating philosophical thought experiment that raises important questions about identity, change, and the nature of objects. Imagine a ship named the Ship of Theseus that, over time, has its wooden planks replaced one by one as they decay. Eventually, every single plank is replaced, so that none of the original materials remain. This leads to a profound question. Is the fully restored ship still the Ship of Theseus? Or, to add another layer to this thought experiment, picture that all the old planks once removed are gathered and reassembled into a ship. Which of the two ships is the real Ship of Theseus? Is it the one that has all new parts, yet has kept the same name and purpose? Or is it the one made from the original materials, even though it has been put together? A fact. This question touches on deep philosophical issues regarding the essence of objects and what it means for something to remain the same over time despite undergoing significant changes. Philosophers have debated this thought experiment for centuries, reflecting on concepts such as personal identity and continuity. Some argue that identity is tied to the continuity of form. The Ship of Theseus serves as a starting point for discussions about how we define objects and ourselves. As human beings also undergo changes throughout our lives, physically and psychologically. As we grow older, change is a fundamental part of our existence. Our cells regenerate, our beliefs evolve, and our experiences shape us into different individuals. Yet, despite these changes, we often feel a sense of continuity in our identity. This thought experiment encourages us to reflect on our own nature, asking whether we are still the same person we were years ago, or if we become entirely different beings through the course of our lives. The Ship of Theseus doesn't just apply to philosophical discussions, it also finds relevance in modern science and technology. For instance, consider the field of artificial intelligence, where machines learn and adapt, continually changing their functionality and capabilities. If an AI undergoes enough updates, modifications, and improvements, at what point does it become a new entity? In the realm of biology, the Ship of Theseus metaphor is often used to illustrate concepts like cellular regeneration, where the human body is in a constant state of flux. Every few years, the vast majority of the trolley problem, a thought experiment in ethics, presents a fascinating way to explore moral dilemmas, as it forces individuals to make difficult decisions about right and wrong, often in life or death situations. Imagine a runaway trolley heading down a track, and ahead there are 5 people tied to the track, unable to move. You stand next to a lever that can divert the trolley onto another track where only one person is tied down. The dilemma arises: do you pull the lever, sacrificing one person to save 5? Or do you do nothing, allowing the trolley to continue on its path, resulting in 5 deaths? This scenario raises profound questions about utilitarianism, which advocates for the greatest good for the greatest number, versus deontological ethics, which emphasizes the importance of following moral rules, regardless of the consequences. In this situation, those who lean toward utilitarianism might argue that pulling the lever is the morally acceptable choice, as it minimizes overall harm. On the other hand, deontologists might contend that actively choosing to pull the lever makes you responsible for the death of the one person, which is inherently wrong, regardless of the outcome. This conflict highlights how moral frameworks can lead to very different conclusions in the same scenario, showcasing the complexity of human ethics and decision-making processes. Moreover, the trolley problem also introduces variations that further complicate the decision-making process. For instance, in one version, the trolley is heading toward 5 people, and you have the option to push a large man off a bridge onto the tracks to stop the trolley. This variation adds a physical element to the decision, as it requires direct action against another person, which many individuals find even more troubling than pulling a lever. The emotional weight of these decisions reflects real-life moral dilemmas, where the stakes can be incredibly high, and the right choice is often clouded by personal beliefs, emotional attachments, and societal norms. Furthermore, the trolley problem has sparked discussions in various fields including psychology, neuroscience, and artificial intelligence, as researchers seek to understand how people make moral choices under pressure and what factors influence these decisions, such as emotions, social context, and cognitive biases. In recent years, it has also gained traction in debates about the ethics of autonomous vehicles. As society moves towards self-driving cars, engineers and ethicists must consider how these vehicles will be programmed to make decisions in scenarios similar to the trolley problem. Weighing the lives of passengers against the brain in a vat scenario is a thought experiment that delves into the nature of reality, perception, and consciousness. Imagine, if you will, a brain removed from its body, suspended in a vat of life-sustaining fluid, connected to a supercomputer. This computer generates electrical impulses that mimic the brain's natural stimuli, creating a simulated reality that the brain experiences as if it were real. This idea raises intriguing questions about the relationship between our minds and the external world, challenging our assumptions about what we can truly know. Philosophers have long debated whether we can be sure that what we perceive is genuine and not merely an illusion. In this hypothetical scenario, the brain might think it's experiencing life, walking in a park, eating a delicious meal, or having conversations with friends, when in fact, it is just a collection of electrical signals. This leads to a fascinating inquiry. If the brain cannot distinguish between the actual world and a sophisticated simulation, can we ever truly know what is real? This thought experiment is often associated with skepticism, particularly in epistemology, the branch of philosophy concerned with knowledge. It prompts us to consider the limits of our knowledge and the reliability of our senses. If we can be deceived in such a profound way, what other assumptions about reality might we need to question? This scenario also touches on themes in science fiction, where artificial intelligence and virtual realities blur the lines between the real and the artificial. The implications of the brain in a vat scenario extend beyond philosophy into discussions about consciousness and artificial intelligence. If a computer can create an experience indistinguishable from reality, what does that mean for our understanding of consciousness? Are we merely complex biological machines, or is there something more to our existence? These questions challenge us to think critically about the nature of our experiences and the technologies that increasingly influence our lives. Moreover, this scenario invites us to reflect on the ethical dimensions of technology and artificial intelligence. And as we develop more advanced systems capable of simulating human experiences, we must consider the moral implications of creating environments that might deceive or manipulate. If a brain could be tricked into believing in a fabricated reality, what responsibilities do we hold as creators of such technologies? The brain in a thought experiment, while simple in its premise, opens up a vast landscape of philosophical inquiry, encouraging us to explore the depths of our understanding of reality, consciousness, and the intricate relationship between mind and life. Imagine a person who does not speak or understand Chinese, sitting inside a room filled with boxes of Chinese symbols, along with a set of instructions in English for manipulating these symbols. People outside the room pass in questions written in Chinese, and the person inside follows the instructions to produce appropriate responses and also in Chinese, without ever understanding the content. To someone outside, it seems as if the person inside understands Chinese, because the responses are accurate and coherent, but in reality, the person is simply manipulating symbols based on rules, lacking any comprehension of what they mean. This thought experiment illustrates Searle's argument that while computers, or systems like the one inside the room, can process information and simulate understanding, They do not have true understanding or consciousness. The Chinese room highlights the difference between syntactic processing, which machines can perform, and semantic understanding, which is what humans experience. Searle uses this argument to suggest that no matter how advanced artificial intelligence becomes, it will not achieve genuine understanding or consciousness, as it operates solely on formal rules and lacks the ability to grasp meaning in the way humans do. This raises profound questions about the nature of pluralization, intelligence, the limits of artificial systems, and what it truly means to understand something, making it a significant topic of discussion in the philosophy of mind and cognitive science. The debate surrounding the Chinese room continues to provoke thought on the implications of AI and whether machines could ever possess qualities like consciousness or understanding, or if they will always remain fundamentally different from human minds, which are capable of grasping context, emotion, and deeper meaning beyond mere symbol manipulation. The experience machine is a thought experiment introduced by philosopher Robert Nozick in his book, Anarchy, State and Utopia, which challenges our understanding of happiness and what it means to lead a good life. Imagine a machine that could provide you with any experience you desired, allowing you to live out your dreams, achieve your goals, and bask in the bliss of perfect satisfaction, all while being completely immersed in these experiences. You could choose to feel love, success, or adventure without any of the struggles or hardships that typically accompany real life. However, the catch is, once you enter this machine, you would lose all connection to reality. You wouldn't know that these experiences weren't real, and you would be living in a fabricated world where everything is designed to bring you pleasure. Nozick's proposal raises profound questions about the nature of happiness, suggesting that many people value authenticity and real experiences more than mere pleasure. This implies that happiness isn't solely derived from positive feelings or experiences, but is also connected to our engagement with the real world, our relationships, and the authenticity of our experiences. In other words, while the machine could offer endless joy, many would choose to reject it, preferring the hardships and challenges of real life, as these elements contribute to a deeper sense of fulfillment. This thought experiment invites us to reflect on what truly matters to us, whether it is the pursuit of pleasure at the expense of reality, or the richness that comes from genuine human experiences, even if they include pain and struggle. Ultimately, the experience machine challenges the idea that happiness is simply about feeling good, suggesting instead that it encompasses a more complex interplay of emotions, connections, and realities that shape our lives in meaningful ways. The infinite monkey theorem presents a fascinating thought experiment that challenges our understanding of randomness, suggesting that, given an infinite amount of time, a monkey randomly pressing keys on a typewriter would eventually produce the complete works of Shakespeare, or any other text for that matter. This theorem, which originated from a mathematical concept, highlights the nature of probability and randomness in an extraordinary way. It forces us to consider the implications of infinity and how randomness operates within it. At first glance, the idea might seem absurd, as it raises questions about the likelihood of such an event occurring in any practical sense. However, the theorem serves as a powerful illustration of the laws of probability, mainly that with infinite possibilities, even the most improbable events can occur, given enough time. This leads to a deeper understanding of what randomness truly means and how it plays a role in our universe. To grasp this better, think about the sheer number of combinations possible when typing on a keyboard. With just a few keys, the total number of different sequences can become astronomically large. The randomness involved in the monkey's typing isn't just about the individual letters, but also about how those letters can come together to form words, sentences, and ultimately coherent works. Therefore, the theorem suggests that randomness is less than about chaos and more about vast potential, where order can emerge from what initially appears to be completely random. Moreover, it challenges our perception of creativity and authorship. If a monkey can produce Shakespeare purely by chance, what does that mean for the value we place on human creativity? While humans often think of writing as an art requiring skill and intent, the theorem implies that, at least in theory, any piece of writing could emerge from random processes, blurring the lines between intentional creation and mere chance. In addition, the infinite monkey theorem has implications beyond literature. It extends into fields like genetics, computer science, and even cosmology. In genetics, for example, the randomness of mutations can lead to significant evolutionary changes over vast timescales. In computer science, considering algorithms that rely on random inputs can lead to breakthroughs or new innovations, suggesting that randomness is not just a lack of order but a source of potential discovery. Ultimately, the infinite monkey theorem invites us to rethink our assumptions about randomness, creativity, and the nature of existence itself. It challenges us to consider how much of what we perceive as structured and meaningful might actually be the result of random processes. And in doing so, the Gettier problem, named after philosopher Edmund Gettier, serves a crucial role in the field of epistemology, which is the study of knowledge. The purpose of the Gettier problem is to challenge the traditional definition of knowledge, which has long been considered to be justified true belief. To explain this, let's break it down a bit. According to this classic definition, for someone to claim they know something, 3 criteria must be met. First, the belief must be true. Second, the belief must be justified, meaning there are good reasons for holding that belief. And third, the person must actually believe it. However, Gettier presented scenarios, now known as Gettier cases, that demonstrate situations where someone has a belief that is both true and justified, but still does not seem to count as knowledge. For instance, imagine a person looking at a clock that shows 3 p.m. and however unknown to them, the clock stopped working hours ago. Coincidentally, it just happens to be 3 p.m. at that moment. In this case, the belief is true, justified, and the person believes it. Yet, intuitively, we would say that the person does not actually know what time it is because their justification was based on faulty reasoning. This leads to a significant implication. The traditional definition of knowledge may be too simplistic or incomplete. The Gettier problem has sparked numerous debates and discussions among philosophers, as it urges a re-examination of what it means to truly know something. It has led to the development of various responses, with some philosophers proposing additional conditions that must be met for a belief to count as knowledge, while others have suggested entirely different frameworks for understanding knowledge. The problem illustrates the complexities of epistemology, showing that knowledge is not just about having true beliefs, but also about the nature of justification and the reliability of the sources from which we derive our beliefs. This has profound implications not just for academic philosophy, but for practical matters in everyday life, such as how we evaluate information in an age where misinformation can easily spread. And the ongoing exploration of the Gettier problem continues to enrich discussions in philosophy, pushing thinkers to refine our understanding of knowledge in a more nuanced and comprehensive way. The paradox of the unexpected hanging presents a fascinating dilemma that challenges our understanding of knowledge and expectation. It begins with a judge telling a condemned prisoner that he will be hanged at noon on one weekday in the following week, but the execution will be a surprise to the prisoner, meaning he won't know the day of the hanging until the morning of the execution. At first glance, this may seem straightforward, but the implications lead to a surprising twist. The prisoner, trying to deduce when he will be hanged, reasons through the scenario. He thinks if he hasn't been hanged by Thursday, then the only day left would be Friday, which he would expect, so it cannot be Friday. This reasoning leads him to eliminate Friday, but then he thinks further. If Friday is out, then if he hasn't been hanged by Wednesday, he would think the same logic applies and deduce that Thursday must be out too, leading him to eliminate that day as well. Continuing this pattern, he concludes that he cannot be hanged at all, because if he hasn't been hanged by Tuesday, then Wednesday would be expected, and so on. However, when the week unfolds, the executioner surprises him. The prisoner is left in shock because he had convinced himself that it was impossible to be hanged on that day. This paradox highlights the conflict between expectation and knowledge. The prisoner's logical reasoning leads him to a conclusion that ultimately fails when faced with reality. It raises questions about what it means to know something and how our expectations can distort our understanding of a situation. The paradox invites us to consider how anticipation can shape our decisions and perceptions, emphasizing the limits of our reasoning when faced with uncertainty. In essence, the unexpected hanging illustrates how the interplay of logic and surprise can lead to outcomes that defy our initial expectations, leaving us pondering the nature of knowledge and the surprises life can hold. The Sorites paradox, often illustrated through the example of a heap of sand, raises intriguing questions about vagueness and our understanding of concepts. Imagine you have a heap of sand, and if you remove a single grain, you still have a heap. This seems reasonable, but if you continue to remove grains one by one, at some point you will no longer have a heap, yet pinpointing the exact moment when it ceases to be a heap becomes quite challenging. This paradox highlights how our language and concepts can be imprecise, showing that there are many instances in life where terms like heap, bald, or tall do not have clear boundaries. The Sorites paradox illustrates that our reasoning often relies on the assumption that there is a precise cutoff point for vague terms, but in reality, this assumption can lead to contradictions. As we move through the steps of adding or removing elements from a category, it becomes increasingly difficult to determine when we cross over from one state to another. This lack of clarity poses significant philosophical questions, particularly in the fields of logic and semantics, inviting us to reflect on how we define and categorize the world around us. Moreover, this paradox also illustrates the limitations of classical logic, which works well with clear-cut categories, but struggles with vagueness. For example, if we say that 1 grain of sand is not a heap, and 2 grains are not a heap, then by following the logic of the Sorites paradox, we could conclude that no number how grains will ever form a heap, which is clearly not the case in everyday experience. This showcases how our intuitive understanding often clashes with strict logical reasoning, leading to a deeper exploration of how we communicate and understand different concepts. As we delve into the implications of the Sorites paradox, it becomes evident that vagueness is not just a linguistic issue, but also a cognitive one, as our minds often rely on fuzzy categories to process information, which can lead to practical challenges in decision-making, categorization, and communication. Understanding vagueness, therefore, becomes crucial in areas like law, where precise definitions can significantly impact legal outcomes, or in artificial intelligence, where programming machines to understand human language requires grappling with these vague boundaries. In essence, the Sorites paradox serves as a powerful reminder that many aspects of our understanding are not as clear-cut as we might wish them to be. It encourages a deeper examination of how we conceptualize Zeno's paradoxes of motion, which date back to ancient Greece, are a fascinating set of philosophical problems that challenge our understanding of motion and infinity. One of the most famous of these paradoxes is the Achilles and the tortoise paradox. In this scenario, Achilles, a swift runner, races against a tortoise, which has a head. Zeno argues that no matter how fast Achilles runs, he will never be able to overtake the tortoise. This is because every time Achilles reaches the point where the tortoise was, the tortoise has moved a little further ahead. This seemingly endless process suggests that motion is an illusion, leading to the conclusion that Achilles can never catch up. Another paradox is the dichotomy paradox, which halfway point. Before it can reach that halfway point, it must get to a quarter of the way, and then an eighth, and so on. This creates an infinite number of steps, implying that motion cannot actually occur because it requires completing an infinite series of tasks. These paradoxes showcase Zeno's challenge against the idea of plurality and the continuity of space and time, prompting deep philosophical discussions about the nature of reality. Zeno's paradoxes have intrigued philosophers and mathematicians for centuries, influencing thinkers like Aristotle, who attempted to refute them by arguing that time and space are not infinitely divisible in the way Zeno suggested. The paradoxes also laid the groundwork for calculus, developed much later by Isaac Newton and Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, which provides a mathematical framework to address such infinite sequences and limits in motion. In essence, Zeno's paradoxes encourage us to explore the complexities of motion, time, and infinity, challenging our perceptions of reality. They reveal the profound philosophical implications that arise when we attempt to understand the fundamental aspects of existence, while also illustrating how ancient dilemmas continue to resonate in modern discussions about mathematics and physics, prompting us to ponder the very nature of movement and the universe. The problem of evil poses a significant challenge to the idea of an omnipotent deity, which is often understood as an all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good being. This philosophical and theological issue arises from the observation that, if such a deity exists, then evil and suffering should not exist in the world. The core of the problem can be summarized in a simple yet profound way. If God is all-powerful, he should be able to prevent evil. If he is all-knowing, he would know when evil is about to occur. And if he is all-good, he would want to prevent evil from happening. Yet, despite the existence of profound suffering, natural disasters, and moral evils, many people wonder how an omnipotent deity can coexist with such realities. Various responses have been proposed by theologians and philosophers throughout history. One of the most common responses is the concept of free will. This argument suggests that God has given humans the ability to choose, and with that freedom comes the potential for evil. If God were to intervene and prevent every instance of evil, it could undermine the value of free will, making human choices meaningless. However, this raises further questions about why God would allow natural evils, like earthquakes or diseases, that are not a direct result of human action. Another response is the idea of a greater good. Some argue that the presence of evil can lead to greater goods, such as the development of virtues like courage, compassion, and resilience. In this view, suffering can serve a purpose and contribute to human growth. Nonetheless, critics of this perspective point out that it can be difficult to justify extreme instances of suffering, such as that experienced by innocent children, as leading to any greater good. Additionally, some thinkers propose that our understanding of good and evil might be limited, and that this perspective suggests that what we perceive as evil might have a place in a larger, more complex scheme that we cannot fully understand. This idea can be comforting to some, as it implies that there is purpose behind suffering, but it can also lead to accusations of intellectual disengagement, as it may seem to dismiss the genuine pain and suffering experienced by individuals. Philosophers like Epicurus have famously articulated the problem of evil, challenging believers to reconcile their faith with the reality of suffering. Epicurus posed a series of rhetorical questions that lay bare the contradiction between belief in an omnipotent deity and the allegory of the cave, presented by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato in his work The Republic, holds profound significance that resonates through philosophy, psychology, and even modern discussions about perception and reality. In this allegory, Plato describes a group of people who have been chained inside a dark cave for their entire lives, facing a blank wall. Behind them, a fire casts shadows on the wall, and these shadows are the only reality the prisoners know. They see the shadows of objects passing in front of the fire, and they believe that these shadows constitute the entirety of existence. The allegory serves as a metaphor for human ignorance and the process of enlightenment, suggesting that most people live in a state of ignorance to making sensory experiences for the whole truth. When one of the prisoners is freed and ascends out of the cave into the sunlight, he experiences a painful yet transformative journey. Initially, he is blinded by the light, symbolizing the struggle that comes with gaining knowledge and understanding. As his eyes adjust, he begins to see the real objects, and eventually, he understands the sun as the source of life and truth. This journey from darkness into light represents the philosopher's path towards knowledge, wisdom, and a deeper understanding of reality. The significance of the allegory of the cave lies in its exploration of the nature of reality and human understanding, challenging us to question the beliefs we hold and the information we receive from our surroundings. Furthermore, the allegory raises questions about the role of education and the responsibility of those who have gained knowledge to help others escape their own figurative caves. It suggests that the enlightened individual, upon returning to the cave to help others, may face resistance or hostility, as those still in the darkness may be unwilling or unable to accept a new reality. This highlights the challenge of sharing knowledge and truth in a world where many are comfortable with their familiar beliefs. In modern contexts, the allegory of the cave can be seen in discussions about media influence, social conditioning, and the ways in which we consume information. It prompts us to consider how our perceptions are shaped by external factors such as education, culture, and technology, and encourages a critical examination of how these influences dictate our understanding of the world. By acknowledging the allegory's significance, we can better appreciate the importance of seeking knowledge, questioning our assumptions, and striving for deeper truths, while recognizing the challenges that come with this pursuit. The omnipotence paradox presents a fascinating challenge to our understanding of divine power, raising questions that have intrigued philosophers, theologians, and thinkers for centuries. At its core, the paradox asks whether an all-powerful being, often referred to as God, can create a stone so heavy that even they cannot lift it. This seemingly simple question dives deep into the complexities of what it means to be omnipotent. If God can create such a stone, then there is something that God cannot do, namely, lift the stone. Conversely, if God cannot create the stone, then there is also something that God cannot do, create the stone. Thus, the paradox seems to suggest that the very concept of omnipotence is self-contradictory. Some argue that omnipotence should be understood as the ability to do all that is logically possible, meaning that God cannot perform logically contradictory actions, such as creating a square circle or lifting an immovable object. This perspective suggests that divine power is not about the ability to do absolutely anything, but rather the capacity to act within the bounds of logical coherence. Others, however, maintain that true omnipotence should encompass even the illogical, which opens up a broader debate on the nature of reality and the limitations we impose on divinity through our understanding of logic. Moreover, the omnipotence paradox also raises questions about the relationship between power and morality. If God is all-powerful, does it follow that God is also all-good? This leads to the problem of evil, where the existence of suffering and injustice in the world challenges the notion of a benevolent, omnipotent deity. Can an all-powerful being choose not to intervene in human suffering? If so, does that mean God is not truly omnipotent, or does it imply a different kind of divine purpose that transcends human understanding? These questions invite deeper philosophical inquiry into the nature of free will and predestination, as well as the ethical implications of divine power. Furthermore, the dialogue surrounding the omnipotence paradox extends to various religious traditions, each offering unique insights into the nature of God. In some interpretations of Christianity, for example, God's omnipotence is balanced by omniscience and omnibenevolence, suggesting that divine power operates within a framework of love and wisdom. In other faiths, like certain strands of Buddhism, the concept of a personal the concept of last Thursdayism is a fascinating thought experiment. At its core, last Thursdayism suggests that the universe was created last Thursday, complete with all the memories, evidence, and experiences that we perceive as real. This idea challenges our understanding of time, memory, and reality itself. It posits that everything we think we know about our lives, our history, and even the universe could be an illusion, carefully crafted to make us believe in a continuity that never truly existed. Advocates of last Thursdayism use it to explore philosophical ideas about knowledge and reality. For instance, if the universe was created just last Thursday, how would we know? Could we trust our memories or the records of history? This thought experiment draws attention to the limitations of human perception and invites skepticism about our understanding of time and existence. It suggests that what we perceive as historical evidence could be fabricated or unnecessary to our understanding of reality. This idea is reminiscent of other philosophical concepts, such as solipsism, where one questions the existence of the external world and posits that only one's mind can be known to exist. Last Thursdayism, however, adds a unique twist where not only the self is questioned, but also the entire fabric of reality, suggesting that everything we experience could have been created recently, complete with forgotten histories and fabricated memories. Last Thursdayism serves as a tool for examining the foundations of our beliefs. It challenges us to consider how we affirm our understanding of reality, and it encourages a deeper inquiry into the nature of time and existence. This thought experiment doesn't just remain in the realm of abstract philosophy, it has implications for how we think about science and the nature of evidence itself. For example, if one were to take last Thursdayism seriously, it would question the validity of empirical evidence that we rely on to support scientific theories, leading to a profound discussion about the reliability of our senses and the interpretations we make based on them. Scientific theories are absolute interpretations of concepts to the same extent that living theories do. Moreover, last Thursdayism can be linked to discussions in metaphysics about the nature of creation and existence. It raises the question of whether the universe requires a creator or if it can exist independently. In doing so, it invites comparisons to various religious beliefs about creation and the origins of existence. This thought experiment also finds its place in discussions about cognitive biases, where humans often rely on their memories to construct narratives about their lives. If Pascal's wager, a philosophical argument put forth by the French mathematician and philosopher Blaise Pascal in the 17th century, tackles the question of belief in God from a unique perspective, focusing on the rationality of belief rather than on the existence of God itself. Pascal suggests that when it comes to believing in God, one faces a sort of gamble, a wager, if you will, where the stakes are incredibly high. He argues that if you choose to believe in God and God exists, you gain eternal happiness in heaven, which is an infinite reward. On the other hand, if you believe and God does not exist, you lose very little, perhaps some earthly pleasures or the time spent in worship. Conversely, if you decide not to believe in God and it turns out that God does exist, therefore, Pascal concludes that it is more rational to believe in God, as the potential benefits far outweigh the risks. This line of reasoning invites individuals to consider belief as a pragmatic choice, one that is based on the outcomes rather than an absolute certainty of God's existence. Pascal also acknowledges that belief is not always a straightforward decision, or doubt. He argues that even if someone finds it difficult to believe, they can still act as if they believe, participating in religious practices and engaging with the community. Over time, Pascal suggests, such actions might lead to genuine belief, thus reinforcing the idea that belief can be a choice, influenced by practical considerations, rather than purely a matter of conviction. This wager prompts profound discussions about faith, reason, and the human condition, leading many to ponder the nature of belief itself. It raises questions about the motivations behind belief, the role of fear and hope in shaping our spiritual lives, and the implications of belief on moral behavior. Pascal's wager remains a compelling argument, blending philosophy, theology, and psychology, and continues to spark debates about the existence of God and the rationality of faith in our modern world. The teletransportation paradox raises profound questions about identity, what it means to be the same person over time. Imagine a scenario where a person steps into a teletransporter, which scans their entire body down to the molecular structure and then transmits that information to a location far away, where another machine reconstructs the individual atom by atom. At first glance, this process seems straightforward, but it brings up a major philosophical dilemma. If the original person is disassembled and a perfect copy is created elsewhere, is the copy truly the same person, or has the original ceased to exist? This paradox challenges our understanding of identity. Some argue that identity is tied to physical continuity, meaning if the original body is destroyed, the person is no longer the same, regardless of how accurate the copy is. Others suggest that identity is connected to the continuity of consciousness and memory, implying that, as long as the memories and consciousness are preserved in the teletransportation process, the copy can still be considered the same person. This leads to further questions about the nature of self and existence, such as whether the original individual experiences any continuity, or if the new person merely believes they are the same because their memories and personality traits have been perfectly replicated. Additionally, the teletransportation paradox touches on the concept of psychological continuity, which posits that personal identity is maintained through interconnected memories, beliefs, and experiences over time. Thus, if the copy retains all of the original's memories and personality, does it truly matter if the original body is gone? This paradox also prompts us to think about the implications of identity in a world where technology could potentially allow for the duplication of individuals. Would society accept multiple versions of the same person? Would they all have the same rights? The teletransportation paradox, therefore, serves as a fascinating lens through which we can examine the fundamental aspects of identity, selfhood, and what it means to exist as a unique individual in an ever-evolving technological landscape. The two envelopes problem is a fascinating thought experiment, often discussed in the context of decision theory, which examines how people make choices under uncertainty. In this scenario, you are presented with two envelopes, each containing a different amount of money. One envelope contains double the amount of the other, but you don't know which is which. After selecting one envelope, you must decide whether to keep it or switch to the other envelope, based on the information available to you. This situation highlights key principles of decision-making, particularly how individuals weigh potential outcomes against their beliefs about the unknowns involved. So, when you first choose one envelope, you might see it contains, say, $10. At this point, you could reason that the other envelope might have either $20 or $5, leading to a dilemma. The expected value calculation suggests that the average amount in the other envelope could be more favorable, enticing you to switch. However, this reasoning can lead to a paradox, as you could apply the same logic repeatedly, always opting to switch, without ever settling on a final decision. This paradox illustrates the complexities in human reasoning when faced with incomplete information, and it raises questions about how we assess risk and reward. In decision theory, the The two envelopes problem challenges our intuition about probability and expectation. It compels us to think critically about how we form our beliefs about chance and value. It serves as a reminder that our decisions often depend not just on the information we have, but also on how we interpret and utilize that information. Furthermore, the problem encourages us to consider factors like cognitive biases, where emotions and heuristics might cloud our judgment, leading us to make choices that don't align with a rational analysis of the situation. This thought experiment also touches on the concept of regret, where the fear of making the wrong choice influences our decision-making process. If you choose the envelope and later find out that switching would have yielded a better outcome, the feeling of regret can impact future decisions, leading you to hesitate or second-guess yourself. This interplay between regret and decision-making is a significant area of study within behavioral economics, which seeks to understand how psychological factors shape economic behavior. As you navigate through this conundrum, the two envelopes problem emphasizes the importance of a structured approach to decision-making. It highlights the need for a clear understanding of probabilities and outcomes, pushing individuals to develop better strategies for making choices in uncertain situations. Ultimately, this illustrates that decision theory is not just about mathematical simulation. The bystander effect is a fascinating psychological phenomenon that illustrates how individuals are less likely to help a victim when other people are present compared to when they are alone. This idea stems from a series of studies, most notably those conducted in the 1960s by social psychologists Bibb Latané and John Darley, who were inspired to investigate the circumstances surrounding the tragic murder of Kitty Genovese in New York City in 1964. Where numerous witnesses reportedly failed to intervene or call for help. The main idea behind the bystander effect is that the presence of others creates a diffusion of responsibility, meaning that individuals feel less compelled to act, believing that someone else will take charge or assist the person in need. This effect can be divided into two key components: social influence and the perception of responsibility. Social influence refers to the tendency of individuals to look to the behavior of others in ambiguous situations, which can lead to inaction if no one else is responding. The perception of responsibility suggests that, when surrounded by others, individuals may feel less personally accountable for taking action, as they assume someone else will step in. This phenomenon has been observed in various scenarios, from emergencies to public disturbances, highlighting the complexities of human behavior in group settings. Understanding the bystander effect is essential, not only for psychological research, but also for developing strategies to encourage proactive behavior in emergency situations, fostering a culture where individuals feel empowered to act, regardless of the number of witnesses present. The drowning child scenario, often used in ethical discussions, presents a powerful illustration of moral obligation, asking us to consider what we would do if we saw a child drowning in a shallow pond. The scenario typically describes a situation where, despite the cost of saving the child, perhaps ruining a pair of shoes or being late to an important appointment, we feel a strong moral imperative to act. This thought experiment, popularized by philosopher Peter Singer, challenges our intuitions about charity and moral responsibility. It raises the question of whether we have a duty to help those in need, even if they are not directly in front of us, sparking a deeper discussion on the extent of our obligations to others. In this scenario, the child represents individuals suffering in distant locations, perhaps due to poverty, hunger, or lack of access to clean water. The moral obligation we feel to save the child evokes a broader principle that suggests if we can help someone without significant cost to ourselves, we ought to do so. This idea of costless giving prompts us to reflect on our daily choices regarding charitable donations and how we prioritize our resources. The scenario challenges us to consider whether our moral obligations should extend beyond our immediate surroundings, urging us to think globally about suffering and assistance. Furthermore, the drowning child scenario also highlights the discomfort we may feel When confronted with the idea of obligation, it forces us to examine the boundaries we set around our responsibilities toward others, particularly those who are far away or who we do not personally know. Many people may feel a strong emotional pull to save the child in the hypothetical situation, yet hesitate when it comes to providing help to those in need in our world today. This discrepancy between our feelings of obligation in hypothetical scenarios versus real-life situations can lead to discussions about moral psychology and the ways in which we rationalize our inaction. One of the significant lessons from this scenario is that moral obligations can often be inconvenient or uncomfortable. The idea that we should prioritize the lives of others, especially vulnerable individuals, over our own comfort or convenience, can be challenging to accept. It forces us to confront the reality that our actions or inactions have consequences, and that we may need to sacrifice a bit of our own well-being for the sake of others. This perspective encourages a more compassionate worldview, fostering empathy for those who are suffering, regardless of their distance from us. Additionally, the drowning child scenario serves as a springboard for discussing the role of societal structures in addressing moral obligations. The Fermi paradox, named after the physicist Enrico Fermi, raises intriguing questions about the existence of extraterrestrial life, and it begins with a simple observation. The universe is vast, with billions of stars and potentially even more planets, many of which could harbor conditions suitable for life. Given the age of the universe, which is around 13.8 billion years, and the number of potentially habitable planets, one would expect that intelligent life should have arisen elsewhere. And yet, despite our efforts to search for signs of such life, we have found none. This contradiction between the high probability of extraterrestrial civilizations and the lack of evidence for or contact with such civilizations is the essence of the Fermi paradox. There are several ways to look at this paradox, and each approach raises further questions. One of the most pressing questions is whether intelligent life, when it does emerge, tends to self-destruct. The rapid advancements in technology, combined with the potential for nuclear war, climate change, or other existential threats, might mean that civilizations do not last long enough to develop the means for interstellar communication or travel. This idea prompts us to consider whether we, as a civilization, are on a similar path, and if so, what can we do to extend our existence? Another possibility is that intelligent civilizations might choose not to communicate or reveal themselves, perhaps due to a principle of non-intervention, or this leads to questions about the nature of intelligence and the motivations behind the behaviors of advanced civilizations. Are they observing us like we might observe a wildlife preserve, maintaining a hands-off approach? Or is it possible that they have advanced so far technologically that they no longer see the value in interacting with less developed species? Furthermore, the vast distances between stars could present insurmountable challenges for communication and travel. Even if a civilization is out there, the sheer scale of the universe means that they may be too far away for their signals to reach us or for us to reach them within a reasonable time frame. This gives rise to questions about how we understand the limitations of technology and what future advancements might allow us to overcome these barriers. How might we bridge the distances? And what technological innovations could be on the horizon that we have yet to imagine? Additionally, there is the consideration that we may not yet be looking in the right way or at the right time. The methods we currently use to search for the Nozick's utility monster thought experiment offers a fascinating exploration of utilitarianism and the nature of justice, which is a philosophical inquiry that many people find intriguing. Proposed by the philosopher Robert Nozick, the thought experiment presents a scenario in which there exists a creature, often referred to as the utility monster, who receives far greater pleasure or utility from resources than any other person. This monster is so incredibly efficient at turning resources into happiness that if we were to allocate resources based solely on maximizing utility, we would end up giving nearly all resources to this one being. This situation raises profound ethical questions, particularly concerning the fairness of a system that would allow one entity to dominate the happiness and well-being of all others. The significance of this thought experiment lies in its challenge to the principles of utilitarianism, which suggests that the best action is the one that maximizes overall happiness. By presenting a scenario where the happiness of one individual could justify the suffering of many, Nozick prompts us to reconsider the implications of utilitarian thinking. It forces a confrontation with the idea that a purely utilitarian approach, which seeks to maximize total happiness, might lead to outcomes that are intuitively unjust or morally unacceptable. This dilemma encourages thinkers to explore alternative ethical frameworks, such as rights-based theories, which emphasize the importance of individual rights and justice over sheer utility. Moreover, the utility monster thought experiment highlights the potential issues of resource distribution in society, prompting discussions about equity, inequality, and the moral responsibilities of individuals and governments to ensure a fair distribution of goods. It questions whether a system that prioritizes total happiness could inadvertently lead to a societal structure where the needs and rights of the majority are overlooked in favor of a single, excessively happy individual. In this sense, the thought experiment serves as a powerful critique of utilitarianism, suggesting that a focus on collective happiness may not be sufficient for a just society. Ultimately, the significance of Nozick's utility monster lies not just in its critique of utilitarianism, but also in its broader implications for our understanding of ethics, justice, and the moral complexities of resource allocation. Through this thought experiment, we are urged to think deeply about what it means to be fair, to distribute resources justly, and to consider the impacts of our philosophical beliefs on real-world issues, making it a compelling topic for anyone interested in the intersections of morality, philosophy, and societal structure. The Ship of Theseus is a fascinating philosophical thought experiment that raises important questions about personal identity, and it has intrigued thinkers for centuries. Imagine a ship named Theseus that has been sailing for many years. Over time, as parts of the ship begin to wear out, they are replaced with new, identical parts. Eventually, every single part of the ship is replaced, and one might wonder, is it still the same ship? This question leads to deeper inquiries about what defines identity itself. Now let's consider how this applies to personal identity. If we think of a person as a kind of ship, we can see that over time our cells, thoughts, memories, and even beliefs change. For instance, every 7 to 10 years, most of the cells in our body are replaced, so biologically, we're not the same person we were a decade ago. Yet, we still feel like we maintain a consistent identity throughout our lives. This raises the question, what is it that makes you, you? Is it your physical body, your memories, or perhaps your personality traits? One perspective suggests that our identity is tied to our memories and experiences. Just as the ship retains its name and history despite the physical changes, we have our lives, which provide a sense of continuity. However, if someone were to lose their memories due to an accident or illness, would they still be the same person? This dilemma is central to the philosophical debate surrounding personal identity. Another viewpoint emphasizes the psychological continuity between past and present selves. Yet what happens during periods of significant change, such as a major life event that alters your worldview? Does that shift fracture your identity, or does it simply evolve it? Additionally, the Ship of Theseus raises questions about the importance of physicality and identity. If someone has a limb amputated or chooses to undergo cosmetic surgery, do they cease to be the same person? Many would argue that, despite these changes, the essence of who they are remains intact. This leads to discussion surrounding the role of the body in our self-perception and identity. Moreover, the Ship of Theseus can also be related to the concept of social identity. Our roles in society, like those of a parent, friend, or professional, can change over time. Newcomb's paradox is a fascinating thought experiment that raises important questions about free will, prediction, and decision-making. At its core, the paradox involves two boxes, one transparent, containing a visible amount of money, say $1,000, and another opaque box, which either contains $1 million or is empty. The scenario is set up with a predictor who is highly accurate at predicting people's choices. Before you make your choice, the predictor has already made a prediction about what you will do. If they predict that you will take only the opaque box, they will place $1 million inside it. However, if they predict you will take both boxes, then the opaque box will be empty. The challenge arises when you consider what your choice says about your free will. If the predictor is so accurate, it seems like your choice has already been determined by their prediction, leading to a dilemma about whether you actually have the freedom to choose differently. If you believe you have free will, you might argue that you can decide to take both boxes regardless of the prediction, thus claiming the $1,000 in the transparent box. However, if you fully trust the predictor's ability, you might decide to take only the opaque box, hoping for the $1 million inside. This creates a tension between the intuition of freely making a choice and the suggestion that your choice is influenced by the predictor's knowledge. What makes Newcomb's paradox particularly intriguing is that it touches on the idea of determinism versus indeterminism. If your choice to take one box or both is influenced by the predictor's predictions, does that mean your decision is predetermined? The paradox forces us to question whether we truly have free will, if our choices can be anticipated with such accuracy. Additionally, some argue that the best strategy is to take only the opaque box as it maximizes potential gain, while others cling to the notion of free will and the idea that they can outsmart the predictor. This thought experiment has implications not just for philosophy, but also for fields like economics, psychology, and artificial intelligence, as it delves into how we perceive choices and outcomes in a world where predictions can shape our decisions. The paradox continues to inspire debate among philosophers, mathematicians, and scientists, making it a rich topic for anyone interested in the complexities of human thought and behavior. The infinite regress problem, a fascinating and complex issue in philosophy, poses significant challenges to various arguments and theories. It essentially questions the adequacy of explanations that rely on an endless chain of reasoning where each explanation requires further justification, leading to an infinite loop with no satisfactory endpoint. This problem can be particularly seen in discussions about causality, knowledge, and justification. For instance, in the realm of epistemology, when one claims to know something, they often must provide reasons or evidence for that knowledge, that the knowledge is already on evidence. However, if each piece of evidence requires further justification, an infinite regress ensues, making it difficult to establish any firm foundation for knowledge. Satisfied to what extent are foundational beliefs that do not require further justification? In metaphysics, the infinite regress problem surfaces in discussions about the existence of the universe, where questions about what caused the universe can lead to an endless series of prior causes. This has prompted some philosophers to propose the idea of a necessary being, which would be the ultimate cause that does not require an explanation itself, potentially providing a resolution to the regress. In ethics, the problem can appear when trying to justify moral principles. If every moral principle needs justification, and each justification requires another, It can lead to a situation where no moral stance is ultimately defensible. Moreover, the infinite regress problem challenges the coherence of various philosophical arguments, making it a central topic in debates about the nature of justification. For example, in discussions about the existence of God, the argument from contingency suggests that everything that exists must have a reason for its existence. However, if every reason requires another reason, it leads to an infinite series that may undermine the original claim of existence itself. This dilemma has led to significant philosophical discourse, as thinkers try to navigate the implications of an infinite regress and its potential resolutions, such as adopting a foundationalist approach or exploring alternate theories that can circumvent the regress. Ultimately, the infinite regress problem serves as a critical lens through which many philosophical arguments must pass, challenging their validity, coherence, and the very foundations upon which they rest. It compels philosophers to refine their positions, ensuring that they can provide satisfactory answers without falling into the trap of endless justification. The liar paradox, a fascinating conundrum in philosophy and logic, arises from a simple yet profound statement. This statement is false. If the statement is true, then it must be false, as it claims. But if it is false, then it is true, creating a loop of contradictions that challenges our understanding of truth itself. This paradox, which has intrigued philosophers, logicians, and mathematicians for centuries, highlights the limitations of our language and the complexities of self-reference system. In exploring the significance of the liar paradox, it becomes clear that it raises important questions about the nature of truth, meaning, and the foundations of logical reasoning. It pushes us to examine how we construct statements and how we define what it means for something to be true or false. The paradox is a cornerstone in discussions about semantics, the study of meaning, and has implications for various fields, including computer science, where issues of self-procreation can lead to complications in programming languages and algorithms. The liar paradox has also paved the way for the development of alternative logical systems, such as paraconsistent logic, which allows for contradictions to exist without leading to a complete breakdown of logical reasoning. By challenging the traditional binary view of truth, the liar paradox encourages thinkers to explore more nuanced understandings of logic, inviting deeper investigations into how we perceive reality and communicate ideas. It also serves as a gateway into the study of other paradoxes, such as Russell's paradox, which deals with sets that cannot consistently contain themselves, further expanding the horizon of logical inquiry. Ultimately, the significance of the liar paradox lies in its ability to provoke thought and discussion about the very foundations of logic and the intricacies of language, reminding us that the pursuit of truth is often more complex than it may initially seem. Zeno's dichotomy paradox presents a fascinating lens through which we can explore complexities of motion. This ancient philosophical puzzle, attributed to the Greek philosopher Zeno of Elea, challenges our understanding of distance and movement. The paradox begins with the notion that before an object can travel from point A to point B, it must first cover half the distance to point B. Once it reaches that halfway point, it must again cover half of the remaining distance, and this process continues infinitely. Essentially, before reaching its destination, the object must first traverse an endless series of halfway points, leading to the conclusion that motion is impossible, because it seems that there are infinitely many steps to take, which implies that one can never actually arrive at the destination. This paradox raises significant questions about the nature of space and time, as it suggests that if there are infinite segments to cover, then the actual act of movement is paradoxically halted, since must always complete an infinite number of tasks to reach the end. This idea challenges our intuitive sense of motion, which suggests that we can easily move from one place to another without even thinking about the infinite steps involved. The implications of Zeno's paradox extend beyond philosophy and into mathematics and physics, prompting thinkers and scientists over the centuries to grapple with the concepts of infinity, continuity, and the nature of reality itself. In modern terms, Zeno's dichotomy paradox has connections to calculus, particularly in how it deals with limits and infinite series. Mathematicians like Isaac Newton and Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz developed calculus to address these types of problems, providing tools to analyze motion and change mathematically. They showed that while there are indeed infinite segments of movement, the resolution illustrates how mathematics can help us understand and reconcile seemingly contradictory ideas about movement, space, and time. Moreover, Zeno's paradox also exposes the philosophical debate surrounding determinism and free will, as it invites us to consider whether every action we take is predetermined by the infinite steps needed to execute it. Or, this paradox has inspired countless discussions in philosophy, mathematics, and physics, making it relevant even in contemporary discussions about the nature of the universe, the philosophy of time, and the underlying principles that govern motion. In essence, Zeno's dichotomy paradox is a profound illustration of the challenges inherent in the tragedy of the commons. It is a concept that illustrates a significant challenge in resource management, particularly in situations where individuals, acting independently according to their own self-interest, deplete or spoil shared resources, which ultimately leads to negative outcomes for the whole community. This idea was popularized by economist Garrett Hardin in his 1968 paper, and it has since become a foundational concept in environmental science and economics. The tragedy occurs in situations where a resource is accessible to all, such as fisheries, pastures, or even the atmosphere, and individuals tend to overuse it because they receive the full benefits of their actions, while the costs are distributed among all users. As each individual seeks to maximize their own gain, the cumulative effect can lead to resource depletion, environmental degradation, and long-term sustainability issues. For instance, consider a common pasture shared by multiple herders, each of whom has a personal incentive to add more livestock to maximize their profit. While one additional sheep may not significantly impact the pasture's health, if all herders make the same choice, the pasture becomes overgrazed, leading to soil erosion, loss of vegetation, and ultimately the collapse of the resource that everyone depends on. This illustrates a fundamental dilemma. The short-term benefit to individuals can lead to long-term detriment for the community at large. The tragedy of the commons suggests that unregulated access to shared resources often leads to a cycle of over-exploitation, highlighting the necessity for effective management strategies. Solutions often involve establishing regulations, promoting cooperation among users, or implementing systems of ownership or stewardship that encourage sustainable practices. By managing resources collectively, communities can work to ensure that the resources are used responsibly and remain available for future generations. Moreover, education and awareness can play crucial roles in changing behaviors and fostering a sense of shared responsibility among individuals. The key takeaway from this concept is the importance of considering the collective impact of individual actions and the need for balance between personal gain and the health of shared resources. The Cartesian demon, a concept introduced by the philosopher René Descartes, plays a significant role in the realm of skepticism, particularly in the context of epistemology, which is the study of knowledge. Descartes proposed this idea in his famous work, Meditations on First Philosophy, where the Cartesian demon represents a hypothetical being, an evil genius who is capable of deceiving us in all aspects of our experience, making us question the very foundations of what we perceive to be true. This notion serves as a powerful tool for skepticism, as it raises doubts about the reliability of our senses and the external world. If such a demon exists, one could argue that everything we believe could be manipulated, leading to falsehoods as truths. decartonize the nature of our beliefs, prompting deeper reflection on what it means to know something. Opinions are firm in statements. In compel scrutinize the nature of our beliefs, prompting deeper reflection on what it means to know something. By becoming the laziness of distributivity in his beliefs, the role of the Cartesian demon, in this sense, is to challenge our assumptions and compel us to scrutinize the nature of our beliefs, prompting deeper reflection on what this leads to the famous conclusion that, even if he were to be deceived, the very act of doubting implies a thinking subject, which culminates in the assertion, cogito ergo sum, or I think, therefore I am. Thus, the Cartesian demon is not just a figure of skepticism, but a catalyst for foundational inquiry into knowledge, encouraging individuals to confront and question their understanding of reality and to seek out what can be known with certainty amidst the potential for deception. It's a striking illustration of how skepticism can lead to a more profound exploration of existence and self-awareness, urging us to consider the limits of human perception and the complexities of truth. The absent-minded driver problem is a fascinating illustration of decision-making, particularly in the context of how individuals can become so focused on a task that they might overlook important cues or changes in their environment. Imagine a driver who is supposed to take a specific route to reach their destination. However, they become so absorbed in their thoughts, perhaps contemplating a personal issue or planning their day, that they forget to pay attention to the road signs or their intended exit. This situation highlights the concept of bounded rationality, which suggests that individuals often make decisions based on limited information and cognitive resources, rather than processing every possible piece of data available to them. In essence, the absent-minded driver problem demonstrates how distractions, whether they are internal, like wandering thoughts, or external, like a phone buzzing with notifications, can severely impact decision-making processes. When faced with a decision, a driver might not consider all available options or the consequences of their actions, resulting in potentially poor outcomes, such as missing an exit or even causing an accident. This problem also underscores the importance of attention and awareness in making sound choices, as a lapse in focus can lead to decisions that diverge from one's original intentions. Moreover, the absent-minded driver problem can also be linked to the concept of heuristics, which are mental shortcuts or rules of thumb that individuals use to make decisions more quickly. While heuristics can be helpful, they can also lead to oversights, as a driver might rely too heavily on their past experiences or automatic behaviors, rather than evaluating the current situation thoroughly. For instance, if a driver usually takes the same route every day, they may unconsciously follow that path, even if circumstances have changed, such as road construction or a new traffic pattern. This tendency to default to routine, rather than actively engaging with the decision at hand. Additionally, the absent-minded driver problem also serves as a reminder of the need for systems and structures to support better decision-making. In real-world applications, understanding how decision-making can falter due to distractions has led to innovations like navigation systems, which provide timely reminders and directions to keep drivers on track. These tools aim to minimize the cognitive load on drivers, allowing them to focus on the road rather than getting lost in thought. By incorporating technology and creating environments that support attention, we can help mitigate the effects of absent-mindedness in decision-making, ensuring safer and more effective outcomes. Ultimately, the chicken or egg dilemma is a classic philosophical and scientific question that explores the nature of causality and the origins of things. It poses the question of which came first, the chicken or the egg, and this seemingly simple question actually delves deeply into the concepts of cause and effect. At its core, this dilemma highlights the difficulties in determining the starting point of a sequence of events, especially in biological terms. In evolutionary biology, this question can be examined from the perspective of species development and reproduction. If we consider that a chicken is defined as a bird belonging to the species Gallus domesticus, we can trace back its lineage through evolutionary history to find its ancestors, which were not quite chickens as we know them today. True. Gradual changes over countless generations. A creature that was not a chicken laid an egg that eventually hatched into what we would classify as the first true chicken. Thus, from an evolutionary standpoint, one could argue that the egg came first, as it was the product of a bird that was almost a chicken, and through genetic mutations a new species emerged. However, if we look at the question from a more philosophical and metaphorical angle, it opens up discussions about existence and the nature of reality. The dilemma invites us to consider the relationships between different entities and how they are interdependent. In many ways, the chicken and the egg represent a cycle of life, where one cannot exist without the other, emphasizing the interconnectedness of all living things. This cyclical nature can also be seen in various cultures and mythologies, where the egg symbolizes creation and potential, while the chicken represents life and manifestation. Thus, the chicken or egg dilemma serves as a thought-provoking prompt that encourages deeper reflection on origin, existence, and the intricate web of cause and effect in our world, prompting us to ponder not only biological processes, but also the philosophical implications of beginnings and the relationships that define our reality. The friendship paradox is a fascinating concept that can reshape how we think about our social connections. It suggests, rather intriguingly, that most people have fewer friends than their friends do. This might seem counterintuitive at first, since we often perceive our own social circles as representative of the broader social landscape. Yet, research shows that if you average out the number of friends that people have, it's often the case that those who are more socially active tend to have a disproportionately large number of friends. A typical friendship looks like. The notion arises from the simple fact that if you are friends with someone who is very popular, their large network can inflate the average number of friends that you perceive people to have. So when we look at our own social circles, we might feel like we are on the lower end of the friendship spectrum, leading to feelings of loneliness or inadequacy, while, paradoxically, many of our friends may actually have even more friendships than we realize. This can create a cycle where individuals feel pressured to maintain or expand their social networks, driven by the perception that others are more connected than they are. Additionally, this phenomenon influences how we view social media, where platforms often showcase the most connected individuals, painting a picture of hyperconnectivity that might not reflect our own experiences. The implications of the friendship paradox stretch into various aspects of life, from mental health to social behavior, as it suggests that being socially active can lead to a more fulfilling life, yet it also highlights the importance of quality over quantity in friendships. Moreover, this paradox can lead to feelings of envy or dissatisfaction as individuals compare their own social lives to those of their more popular peers. It also brings into question the value we place on social connections, as it becomes evident that simply having a lot of friends does not necessarily equate to having meaningful relationships. The paradox can encourage reflection on the nature of our friendships and push us to seek deeper connections, rather than merely focusing on the number of friends we have. In essence, the friendship paradox serves as a reminder that social connections are complex and nuanced, encouraging us to look beyond the surface and recognize that quality, support, and understanding in our relationships often matter much more than the sheer number of friends we can count. The paradox of choice, a concept popularized by psychologist Barry Schwartz, suggests that having too many options can lead to anxiety, dissatisfaction, and even paralysis in decision-making. This phenomenon is particularly relevant in today's world, where consumers are often inundated with choices, ranging from the simplest daily decisions, like what to eat for breakfast, to more complex ones, like choosing a career path or a life partner. The essence of the paradox lies in the idea that while some choice is necessary for autonomy and empowerment, An overabundance can lead to feelings of being overwhelmed. When faced with numerous options, individuals may struggle to make a decision, fearing they might make the wrong choices, which can intensify their anxiety and regret. Moreover, after making a choice, the abundance of alternatives can lead to second-guessing, as people wonder if they could have made a better choice had they selected a different option. This can diminish overall satisfaction, as the ideal of perfect choice becomes an impossible standard to meet, leading to the realization that sometimes less is more. In practical terms, the paradox of choice suggests that limiting options can lead to more fulfilling and confident decision-making. For example, restaurants that offer a concise menu often find that customers enjoy their meals more than those at places with extensive offerings. This principle extends beyond consumer choices, influencing areas like education, where students may benefit from a curated selection of courses, allowing them to focus on what truly interests them, rather than being overwhelmed by endless possibilities. Furthermore, the paradox of choice resonates in personal relationships as well, as individuals navigating dating apps may feel paralyzed by the sheer volume of potential partners, leading to a cycle of indecision and dissatisfaction rather than embracing meaningful connections. Understanding the implications of the paradox of choice can empower individuals to create environments that facilitate better decision-making by simplifying choices, fostering clarity, and ultimately enhancing their overall quality of life. By recognizing that a limited set of options can lead to greater satisfaction, one can learn to embrace constraints as a means to cultivate meaningful experiences, reminding ourselves that sometimes having too many choices can be more of a burden than a benefit. The bootstrap paradox presents a fascinating puzzle that challenges our understanding of time travel. It occurs when an object or piece of information is sent back in time, creating a loop where the item exists without an origin. Imagine, for instance, a time traveler who goes back to the past and hands William Shakespeare a copy of his own plays. Later, Shakespeare writes those plays, and then the time traveler takes that same copy back to the future, where he got it in the first place. This scenario raises the question, where did the original plays come from? If they were never written in the conventional sense, it creates a situation where the plays have no true beginning, leading to a paradox. The bootstrap paradox challenges our linear view of time, suggesting that time is not just a straight path, but rather a complex web of interactions, where cause and effect can become entangled in ways that defy our usual understanding. This paradox makes us reconsider the nature of reality, as it implies that information or objects can exist eternally in a loop without a clear source. Philosophers and scientists alike ponder the implications of such a scenario, as it forces us to think about the possibility of alternate timelines and the role of free will in a universe where events can be predetermined. The bootstrap paradox is not merely a thought experiment. It has been explored in various forms of media, from movies and television shows to literature, capturing the imagination of audiences and prompting discussions about the very fabric of time itself. The concept raises questions about whether time travel is even possible, and if it is, what rules govern it, leading to deeper inquiries into the nature of causality and the flow of time. As we continue to explore the universe and the laws of physics, the bootstrap paradox remains a tantalizing enigma, inviting further investigation into the mysteries of time and existence. The prisoner's dilemma is a fascinating concept in game theory that explores the complexities of cooperation and betrayal, highlighting how individual decisions. Imagine two prisoners held in separate cells, who are each given choice to either cooperate with each other by remaining silent or betray the other by confessing to a crime. If both prisoners choose to remain silent, they receive a light sentence, demonstrating the benefits of cooperation. However, If one prisoner betrays the other while the other remains silent, the betrayer goes free, while the silent prisoner faces a harsh sentence. This situation creates a tension between self-interest and mutual benefit, as the fear of betrayal can lead both prisoners to betray each other, resulting in a worse outcome for both. This illustrates a broader principle about human behavior and social interactions, showing that while cooperation can lead to the best collective outcome, the temptation to betray can often lead individuals to act in their own self-interest, even when it's detrimental to the group as a whole. The temptation to betray people can lead to betray people to the group as a whole. The dilemma emphasizes how trust is a fragile yet essential component in relationships, whether personal, professional, or within larger social structures. It also sheds light on how the fear of being taken advantage of can prevent people from cooperating, leading to a cycle of distrust that can permeate various aspects of society. In real-life applications, the prisoner's dilemma can be seen in economics, politics, and environmental issues, where parties may struggle between cooperating for mutual benefit or pursuing their own interests. For instance, in climate change negotiations, countries may be tempted to prioritize immediate economic gains over long-term environmental sustainability, fearing that if they commit to reducing emissions, others may not follow suit, leading to a situation where everyone suffers from the consequences of inaction. Moreover, research in psychology and sociology has shown how repeated interactions can influence behavior. When individuals expect to interact with the same partners over time, they are more likely to cooperate, as the potential for future interactions encourages trust building. This aspect highlights the importance of communication and relationship building in fostering cooperation, as well as the role of reputation in social dynamics. In essence, the prisoner's dilemma serves as a powerful reminder of the delicate balance between cooperation and betrayal, underscoring how our choices, influenced by trust and fear, can shape not only our own outcomes, but also those of others around us. The Ship of Theseus, a thought experiment from ancient philosophy, poses a fascinating question about identity and change, and it has significant implications for modern discussions of technology. The essence of the Ship of Theseus lies in whether an object remains fundamentally the same when all of its components have been replaced over time. This idea becomes particularly relevant in our rapidly advancing technological landscape, where devices, software, and even entire systems undergo continuous transformation. For instance, consider a smartphone which, over a few years, may have its battery replaced, screen upgraded, and software updated multiple times. At what point, if ever, does it cease to be the same phone? This dilemma invites people to think about the nature of identity in a world driven by innovation and obsolescence. In the realm of artificial intelligence, the Ship of Theseus raises unique questions about machine learning systems. As algorithms are refined, datasets are updated, and models evolve, one might wonder if an AI system retains its identity. For example, a self-driving car that learns and adapts from its experiences, or a recommendation algorithm that continuously alters its parameters based on user behavior, challenges our understanding of their original form. Are these systems still the same entities that were first deployed, or have they transformed into something entirely new based on their experiences and upgrades? Moreover, the concept also ties into discussions about digital identity and online personas. As people curate their social media profiles, edit their personal information, and change their usernames, the question arises, how much alteration can occur before a person's digital identity becomes unrecognizable? Just like the Ship of Theseus, individuals online may modify aspects of their identity. This parallel highlights the fluidity of identity in the digital age, where transformation is constant, and what it means to be the same can be ambiguous. In the context of software development, the Ship of Theseus can be illustrated through the concept of versioning. Software is seldom static. It evolves through updates, patches, and new features. When a software program releases a significant update, some users may argue that it has become an entirely different program, while others might feel that its core functionality remains unchanged. This debate illustrates how the principles of the ship of Theseus can inform discussions about what constitutes the identity of software, especially as it becomes more complex and intertwined with user experience. Additionally, the implications of the ship of Theseus extend to hardware components in technology. For instance, the butterfly effect, a fascinating concept in chaos theory, illustrates how small changes in initial conditions can lead to vastly different outcomes, demonstrating the sensitivity of complex systems to initial variables. This idea is often encapsulated in the metaphor of a butterfly flapping its wings in Brazil, which, theoretically, could set off a chain of events that results in a tornado in Texas, showcasing how interconnected and intricate natural systems are. The purpose of the butterfly effect is to highlight the unpredictability and inherent complexity in systems that are sensitive to initial conditions, as even minor fluctuations can have significant and far-reaching consequences. This has applications across various fields, from meteorology to economics, where understanding these small influences can prove crucial in predicting larger patterns and behaviors. In essence, the butterfly effect emphasizes that seemingly insignificant actions can yield monumental changes, leading researchers and scientists to explore the importance of initial conditions in their studies, whether they are analyzing weather systems, population dynamics, or even social behaviors. It serves as a reminder of the delicate balance in nature and the interconnectedness of events, prompting a deeper reflection on how our actions, no matter how small, may ripple through time and space, influencing outcomes in ways we might not immediately recognize. The moral luck thought experiment, a fascinating concept in moral philosophy, raises intriguing questions about how we assign moral responsibility to individuals based on factors beyond their control. This idea was notably explored by philosopher Thomas Nagel, who argued that certain elements of luck can influence our moral judgments. Imagine a scenario where two drivers, who are both equally reckless, get into accidents. However, one driver tragically kills a pedestrian, while the other driver merely causes property damage. Here, the moral luck concept suggests that the driver who caused death may be judged more harshly, despite both having made similar choices. This leads us to ponder how much of our moral assessment should rely on the outcomes of our actions, especially when those outcomes are not entirely within our control. Moral luck challenges the notion of moral responsibility by introducing the idea that factors such as circumstances, consequences, and even luck can play roles in how we evaluate someone's moral standing. For instance, consider a person who intends to perform a good deed, but due to unforeseen circumstances, their action inadvertently leads to harm. Should that person be held to the same moral standard as someone whose intentions were harmful from the outset? This dilemma raises critical questions about fairness in moral evaluations, as it suggests that we often judge individuals not just by their intentions, but also by the unpredictable results of their actions. But furthermore, there are different types of moral luck, including result luck, where the consequences of an action affect moral judgment; constitutive luck, which involves the traits and dispositions a person has that are shaped by factors like upbringing; and circumstantial luck, dealing with the situations one finds themselves in. Each type illustrates how much of our moral identity can be influenced by luck. This thought experiment has significant implications for legal systems, ethics, and our everyday moral reasoning. If we believe that individuals are morally responsible for outcomes influenced by luck, it complicates our understanding of justice and accountability. It confronts us with the uncomfortable reality that our moral evaluations might not be as objective as we'd like to think. In light of these insights, we are left to question how we define virtue and vice, and whether it is truly fair to hold individuals accountable for situations they did not control or outcomes they could not foresee. As we navigate these complex moral landscapes, The moral luck thought experiment invites us to reconsider our beliefs about personal responsibility, justice, and the unpredictability of human life. The hard problem of consciousness, a term coined by philosopher David Chalmers in the 1990s, addresses one of the most profound puzzles in the study of the mind. While scientists and philosophers have made significant strides in understanding the workings of the brain, including how neurons communicate and how various brain regions contribute to behavior, the hard problem delves deeper, questioning the very nature of consciousness itself. It emphasizes the difference between what is known as the easy problems, which involve explaining cognitive functions and behaviors, and the hard problem, which grapples with the essence of experience, the what it feels like aspect of being conscious. This distinction is crucial as it highlights that even if we map every neuron and synapse, we still may not uncover why those processes lead to feelings, thoughts, and experiences, such as the sensation of seeing the color red or the emotional weight of nostalgia. The significance of the hard problem lies in its implications for various fields, including neuroscience, psychology, and even artificial intelligence. It challenges researchers to consider the limitations of our current scientific methods, pushing the boundaries of how we define and investigate consciousness. Many argue that if we cannot explain subjective experience, we may need to rethink our understanding of the mind itself. This issue raises ethical questions as well, particularly concerning the treatment of beings that may possess consciousness, whether they are animals or advanced AI systems. If consciousness can arise from complex systems, how do we determine which entities deserve moral consideration? Moreover, the hard problem has inspired a wealth of philosophical inquiry, leading to various theories about the nature of consciousness, such as dualism, which posits that mind and body are distinct, and panpsychism, which suggests that consciousness is a fundamental feature of the universe, present even in the simplest forms of matter. In popular culture, the hard problem has captured the imagination of many, featuring in discussions about the potential for machines to achieve true consciousness, or in exploring the implications of brain-computer interface that blur the lines between human and machine. As we continue to unravel the mysteries of consciousness, the hard problem serves as a reminder of the complexity and depth of our own experiences, urging us to reflect on what it truly means to be aware, to feel, and to exist. It invites both scientific and philosophical exploration, challenging us not only to seek answers, but also to appreciate the profound mystery of our own consciousness. Ultimately questioning the paradise paradox, which revolves around the concept of an all-knowing being, raises intriguing questions about the nature of free will. This paradox suggests that if an omniscient being, such as God, knows everything that will ever happen, including our future choices, then it implies that our decisions are predetermined. This leads to a significant dilemma. If every action we take is already known, can we truly have free will? On the hand, many argue that if our choices are already known, then we lose the ability to choose otherwise, which seems to negate the notion of free will. On the other hand, proponents of free will contend that knowing an outcome does not necessarily cause that outcome to happen. They argue that free will allows individuals to make choices independent of any prior knowledge. This debate has profound implications for philosophy, religion, and ethics, as it challenges the definitions of morality and accountability. If we are not truly free in our choices, how can we be held responsible for our actions? Some philosophers propose that the future is not fully determined, suggesting a model where God knows all possible outcomes, without determining which will actually occur, thus preserving human free will, while maintaining omniscience. This perspective introduces the idea of open theism, which posits that while God knows everything that can be known, the future is influenced by human choices, allowing for genuine freedom. This ongoing discourse invites a closer examination of the relationship between divine knowledge and human autonomy, challenging us to reconsider the implications of our beliefs about free will in the context of an all-knowing entity. The omniscient paradox therefore becomes a rich field for exploring deeper questions about existence, choice, and the nature of reality itself. Searle's Chinese room argument presents a fascinating perspective on artificial intelligence, emphasizing the distinction between understanding and merely simulating understanding. Imagine, for a moment, a person who is locked inside a room. This person does not understand Chinese, yet they have been given a set of rules, a sort of instruction manual that allows them to manipulate Chinese symbols in a way that seems coherent to an outside observer. When someone outside the room passes in a question written in Chinese, the person inside, using the rules they have, can produce a response that makes sense to the questioner, even though they have no comprehension of the language itself. This scenario illustrates Searle's argument that, even if a computer could convincingly simulate a conversation in a language, this does not mean that the computer actually understands the conversation or possesses any genuine intelligence. The argument raises important questions about the nature of thought and consciousness, suggesting that the mere processing of information or the ability to respond appropriately to stimuli does not equate to true understanding. Searle posits that while computers can perform tasks that appear intelligent, they lack any form of consciousness or subjective experience. Therefore, according to Searle, the fundamental aspect of human intelligence, our ability to understand meaning, cannot be replicated by machines, regardless of how sophisticated they become. This concept challenges the prevailing notion that artificial intelligence could eventually replicate human-like understanding, leading to profound implications for the future of AI research and development, as it forces us to reconsider what it really means to know something. The Chinese room argument remains a cornerstone in discussions about the capabilities and limitations of artificial intelligence, encouraging both scientists and philosophers to delve deeper into the mysteries of cognition and consciousness, and to explore the implications of creating machines that can mimic human behavior without possessing the underlying understanding that we often take for granted.